Hello all you spacefaring cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing Endless Space 2 by Amplitude Studios and published by Sega. Endless Space 2 is of course the sequel to the critically acclaimed turn-based 4X strategy game Endless Space. The game looks to take what the original did and improve upon it further. First, starting with, of course, the factions. There are several factions available to choose from, everything from humans to weird-ass aliens, and each faction has its own unique mechanics, its own unique starting technologies, and I love the fact that each faction tended to feel quite unique, particularly factions like the Vojani, whereby they were a nomad species, so they can't colonize planets. You have to use their arcs to colonize an entire system, and then you can basically move a colony and just completely go into another system and start colonizing that. But every time you moved an arc, it would mean that the colony that did exist would be removed. They also had things like unique resources, which was essence, whereby you had to have essence to create more arcs and other things within their faction. And to be able to get essence, you would have to enter a system that had some sort of civilization, whether it be another large faction or a minor faction, and you would have to basically siphon off their biological essence in able to get that resource. And there's lots of factions that have their own unique mechanics, and it's something that helped the game with a lot of replayability and made each faction somewhat unique and interesting. Endless Space 2 is a turn-based 4X game, and unlike a game like, say, Stellaris, I feel that the turn-based nature really does help out things like the multiplayer, because it really does even out the playing field. It doesn't really rely on speed at all. It's more about strategy and skill, and building your empire correctly versus I can just do this quicker than you can. And I certainly feel that really puts it in position to offer up a really solid multiplayer experience. On the basic gameplay mechanics, they all work very well. Once you delved into a game, you start building up your empire, start scouting the various solar systems, researching technologies, coming across curiosities, which is basically Stellaris' version of anomalies. And you research those curiosities to gain new resources, unlock strategic resources for that planet. So once you colonize it, you can then mine for that resource, and of course unlock side quests. Now, speaking of side quests, the questing system in Endless Space 2 works really well. Each faction has a main storyline quest that you can go through, which helps push you forward within the game itself, so you can make decisions and choices that will have consequences. So for example, in a quest you might be offered to follow a specific route and choose your own objective, whether it be scientific objective or military objective, and then that can actually have an effect on your empire itself, in what your empire becomes. The game has a tech tree, as you would expect it to have, and as you research technology, you'll unlock more technology, as well as unlocking things for your ships and things for your colonies. What I liked about the tech tree is that it also has a deed system in there, whereby if you complete a certain objective within the game itself, such as be the first faction to win 10 battles, then you will unlock a technology deed, which will grant you a bonus in some form. Now, like I said, once you've unlocked certain tech, you'll unlock modules for your ships, which can be used in the ship designer. Now, every 4X strategy game has a ship designer from here to Kingdom Come, but I have to say that Endless Space 2's ship designer works really well, and I found endless enjoyment by kitting out ships in different ways, putting different modules in, different weaponry, different armor, different engine systems, and really trying to get bang for my buck, but as well as creating a battleship that is built for sheer destruction and is an unstoppable force in the galaxy. All of Endless Space 2's core mechanics work really well, especially on the gameplay side, but there are some that work better than others. Some that don't work particularly well are, for example, diplomacy. While the diplomacy system works as it's intended to work and it does the job, I have to say that I was less than impressed with the diplomacy. There are plenty of options for diplomacy, but there's not enough. I don't think it's as in-depth as it could have been. And then on top of that, Factions, especially when you're in a single player mode and you are facing down AI don't really engage with you in diplomacy. They will send you a message every now and again alluding to that they want something, like they'll threaten you for resources, but other than that they don't really engage with you all that often, and it's something that I feel really lets the game down in trying to create this, living world. You don't really feel that with the AI, and that really translates into their AI's core system programming as well, because the AI is just lackluster throughout the single player. There are some times where I feel that the AI doesn't really know what to do with certain factions, particularly the more unique factions that have their own special mechanics, like the Vojani. I don't really feel that the AI knows how to play the Vojani at all very well, and it's noticeable. It's noticeable in the fact that I get that sometimes the AI might be triggered to play like an isolationist, but at the same time it should be progressing on an technology front and that kind of thing. And I had one game where it was nearly end game, and the Vojani had barely researched any technology. They hadn't expanded at all, and that is not within their nature itself. And there are times where I felt that the AI just didn't know what it was doing. It was not challenging really at all, and I felt that the single player experience, even on the harder difficulties, was at times lackluster at best. When diplomacy fails, you have combat to take to your answer. Now, the combat in Endless Space is like the first one in the fact that it is completely hands-off. You are able to select what type of combat you want to do, whether you want to focus on long-ranged or medium-range or short-range, and you only actually unlock more of those options as you research military technologies. So if you don't research military technologies, you will not have enough command points to, one, build a large force, and two, unlock new basically battle strategies. But other than that, it's pretty hands-off. It's pretty just a light show. You can watch it, or you don't have to watch it. You could just skip, but that's all you do. And for me, while I certainly enjoy watching the ship-to-ship battles, and I thought the camera angles are nice, and you can do a multitude of things to watch, it doesn't really engage me all that much. And I have to say that my favourite kind of combat for a 4X strategy game is turn-based combat, as you would expect, with ships, with abilities, and multitudes of things to do. And Endless Space 2 doesn't have that. Some people will no doubt enjoy that form of combat. I just didn't think it was that engaging. Nothing wrong with it per se, but from a subjective point of view, I have to say that it wasn't my cup of tea. What was my cup of tea, however, was the hero units, and I absolutely love the hero system in Endless Space 2. You are able to unlock and recruit new heroes. You can use those heroes as governors of systems and colonies, or you can use them to lead a battle group. You can lead them to use your fleets, and heroes can be leveled up. They have a skill tree that you can put skills in, and they will have various effects. They have their own special unique ships that you can upgrade and kit out, and they can actually lead political factions in the run up for your own government system. And I absolutely loved the hero system. I thought it was really enjoyable, and it really does help get you invested into your empire, because you have these heroes who go along and they take part in battles and they level up, and it helps you as a player really get invested. The last thing I want to touch on is, of course, the graphics and sound. I absolutely love Endless Space 2 graphically. I think it's an absolute visual treat, in particular the UI, and it just makes you, once you get over that initial 4X strategy learning curve of knowing what everything is in a UI, I have to say that the UI just worked really, really well. It was simple to use, it had a really nice interface, it looked really great, and I have to say the Endless Space 2 from a menu's perspective looks great pretty much throughout the game. It looks great all the time. I love the battles, for example, where you can go into overview mode and scan, and it comes up with all these lines and information, and it makes you feel like you are actually in a sci-fi movie, and I absolutely love that about it. I will say that on larger galaxies, when you have explored the map a lot and there are multiple players, the game does tend to start to slow down on turn. it does tend to creep along. There are a couple of performance drops and a couple of menu bugs here and there. Nothing particularly noticeable for the most part, nothing that it would be considered problematic, but every now and again you will encounter something a little bit odd within the game, and it should be noted that that is in there before you make a decision to purchase. Overall, however, I have to say this: Endless Space 2 is a fantastic turn-based 4X strategy game. It looks great, it sounds great, and it plays great. Yes, there are specific problems. Yes, there are things that I think could have been done better, could have been fleshed out more. Yes, the AI can be a little bit lackluster, but it does certainly make up for that in multiplayer. But I will say that overall, as an overall package for what you get, I was not disappointed in the slightest. I think for me, if you are a 4X strategy fan, it is definitely worth picking up because you will have hours and hours and hours of enjoyment here. The game is packed full of content, there's tons of stuff to explore and see, and each time you start a new game, you're going to get a new universe to play in. I love the fact that each faction is unique and really helps the game with its replayability. And for me, it's just a really well-rounded game. Certainly not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, certainly does not topple Stellaris, but well worth it nonetheless. And that is my review for Endless Space 2. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, and as always, I will see you next time.